Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all sorts of good stuff. And good news, guys, our Uber Eats delivery driver, the only one who knows the location of the Batcave, it's the one and only Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
Well, John, the way things are going, that's about all I have going for me today. The Batcave itself. But, you know, he does let me play with some of the stuff in the Batcave occasionally. So I've got that going for me, which is nice.
Well, that's nice. And, you know, I was thinking, I can't remember what it was. I think it was during the last part. You had taken off by then, but I think it was during the last part of the John Campea Show yesterday, during the waning moments, if you will, of the show in the Q&A section. But I got reflecting, but thinking a little bit more about DC FanDome. And you know what I think it is? Because when I sit back and look at it, was it other than just announcements and trailers and what have you, and I've got things popping up over your screen that I'll get rid of, other than trailers that they could have just released without the event and press releases that they could have just done without the event, I thought, you know, it was good. It was certainly much better than the job Comic-Con at Home did. Certainly much, much better of a job. And it was only their first time trying to do it. So I expect if they do this in the future, it's going to get even better. And a lot of things I did enjoy it. But I remember thinking, you know, they showed some clips at DC FanDome of like Comic-Con Brazil. Do you remember that? They showed some clips of that.
Yeah.
And when they did, I'm like, that's what a real thing is. Like the digital online stuff just doesn't replace that. And that's clearly a better kind of an experience. But I was thinking, why is it I'm having such a good reaction to FanDome? And I think I figured it out. DC FanDome, to me, tell me what you think about this, was such a gift to movie fans right now, because it was the first thing we've gotten in like 6 months almost to really just rally around and celebrate movies. And I know it was also about comic books. I also know it was about video games, and it was also about some of the TV stuff. Yeah, it was. I'm not discrediting any of that. But I just remember thinking, what was so special? First time thing, and it was really just a lot of press announcements. What made it so great? Oh, you know what it was? They gave us something to celebrate the movies again. And when you really think about how crappy it has been for the last 6 months, you really appreciate, at least I did, like what a true gift that was for them to give movie fans. You know, this is because I honestly can't remember the last time like movie fans have just had something to truly all focus on and just celebrate and just enjoy. Because, you know, I think we take for granted, I know I take for granted, the fact that normally every week we have 3, 4, sometimes 5 brand new wide release major motion pictures coming out. We have incredible news coming out every day. We have all these things to look forward to and talk to all the time. And I realize these last 6 months have really taught us that I think we, especially me, really takes that for granted. And I think DC FanDome was a great reminder of that. And by it giving us this great gift of something to just look at and celebrate, I've become even more appreciative in the last couple of days since it happened. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, it's funny that you put it that way, because I haven't really it hadn't sort of gelled for me. But, you know, if you really think about it, the act of going to the movies is always, for the most part, a joyous experience. It makes us happy. You know, and whether we had a lot of things, I was looking forward to this year for the Justice for Han, James Bond, Top Gun, Black Widow, The Eternals. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And then not only do we get those movies, then I look forward to buying the physical media. I look forward to buying the hot toys. So all the ancillary things that happen, movie going and for movie fans it's an injection of joy. And like you said, on a daily and weekly basis, these are things that make us happy. And sure, they might be flights of fancy and they might take us away from things, but like I don't have any prescription medication. I never have. Like I don't take any prescription medication at all. And I find joy in movies. Movies have always been my thing. I mean, I don't need Zoloft or Percocet or whatever. I watch movies and they make me feel good. And I've been watching movies for my whole life. And this is the summer is a vibrant part of the movie season. This was all taken away. I'm not only off my meds, they've been taken away from me. My meds being movies. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I was kind of excited about sitting down to watch, like being a DC fan person my whole life. But to see, I mean, look what we got. You got Wonder Woman, Suicide Squad, Batman, Shazam, Black Adam. So not only were these movies, but these were also characters that I've been reading about in comics. I mean, hell, I was watching Shazam when I was a little kid on TV on Saturday mornings. So the DC FanDome event touched on literally my entire life in certain ways. Sandman, my favorite comic book series. We had Neil Gaiman talking about the audio drama, which did drop, and I've experienced it, and it's 11 hours long. It was amazing. So basically, in the space of an afternoon, we were reminded of joy. You know, and you can be as cynical as you want and say, okay, it was a commercial event. Sure it was, but like you pointed out so very astutely, it was giving us a reminder of all this stuff that we love and how much we've missed it and how we haven't got it. We haven't even got trailers. You know, I posted one of those John Travolta Pulp Fiction memes where he's standing on the dunes and it's like waiting for the Dune trailer, like, you know, and we don't even get the trailers that we used to get because nothing's coming out anytime soon.
It was weird because like I realized on my YouTube stream, on my YouTube feed, I realized because all the Batman trailer reactions were coming up, right? It's like realized, oh yeah, it's been freaking forever since I've seen trailer reactions popping up in my YouTube feed. So I got to imagine like the trailer reactors must have been like extremely happy. Anyway, it's just some rumination, guys, about things we were thinking about. But listen, we do have some specific things to talk about here today, and we're going to do that. And here's how today's show is going to break down. We are going to start off the first half of the show by covering some main topics that you guys have submitted in. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to take your live questions. And you can get a comment or question in the live questions part of the show by simply using the tip link in the top of the description of this video, or you can just enter it manually here, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. All right. Now, guys, let's get into those live questions. And how do we select our live questions here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by simply going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question and then hit submit. It's totally free, as a matter of fact. And then once you do hit submit, maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number one, shall we? And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Jerome Levesque, who writes, "Hi, John, Rob, Aaron, Filthy, and proud to be since 2013. Well, thank you so much, Jerome. I was listening to John and Rob review the amazing The Batman teaser trailer and got thinking, what an irregular chance for Matt Reeves or any other director in a similar situation to these weird-ass times to get a chance to gather feedback, good or bad, from the public, as roughly 25% of his film is actually shot. There's vision for sure, but what a temptation, understandably, it must represent to course correct depending on that feedback." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, of course, we were just talking about DC FanDome, and one of the big trailers that dropped, the biggest one, obviously, was the Batman, but we also got a behind-the-scenes look at Suicide Squad, a new Wonder Woman 84 look. We got our first kind of samples and tasting of what Black Adam was going to be like. We got the Snyder Cut stuff, all sorts of things. This is something I've had, Rob, actually a surprising number of people writing into me and asking, you know, do you think now that they put up these trailers and they get reaction, that now they can go back and they've got time to make changes to their movies as a result of the feedback they get from these trailers? anything is possible. Anything's possible. Like, you look at this Batman trailer, which, you know, other than a couple of little nitpicks I had, I freaking love this trailer. I just cannot wait to see what Matt Reeves is doing with this movie. You know, it still comes down to the main thing, though. Filmmakers, once they have they need to follow their vision. You know, my bottom line feeling on this is filmmakers need to follow their vision. And I think for the most part they do. And they understand the reason that they're filmmakers and the rest of us fans aren't is because they know what they're doing. And they got to follow, because, you know, I think you need to succeed or fail. And you got to be able to look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, I succeeded or failing doing what I thought was right. And if it failed, then at least I did my movie and I got no regrets. And if it succeeds, great. All that kind of stuff. But no, I really don't think, because here's the problem, Rob. Too many times fans think, and I think we're all guilty of this. Fans think they speak for everybody. Fans feel like they speak for everyone. Like, I've had people say to me, the fans, John, want, I don't know, X something. And I would often say to them, no, that's not true. I know a lot of fans that, in fact, do not want what you just said the fans want. The problem is them and all their friends think that way, so they kind of have this perception that all fans must feel this way. So no, especially based on trailers. Now, you'll get a 1 in a million situation, something like the Sonic situation, where they decide to make a change just with a physical design of something, of the creature. And they went back and did that, made a bunch of people happy. I didn't think they should have changed it. I thought the changes they made were improvements, so I'll give them that. I thought the changes they made were improvements. But that's a 1 in a million situation. I certainly don't think, based on a 2-minute trailer or something that showed like whatever, that a director or producer should feel like, oh, these fans got a 2-minute look at everything. They know what we should do with this movie. So no, and I think we as fans, like, listen, there's something hypocritical about us as fans, and I include myself in this, where we will yell at studios, let the directors carry out their vision. Let the directors carry out their vision. But then we as fans turn around and go, hey, directors, do what we want you to do. Do what we want you to do. You know what I mean? There's something inherently hypocritical about us. And I am as guilty as this as anybody. But there's something but basically, no, I think whatever path, look, James Gunn has already finished shooting his movie. I think none of us should second guess Patty Jenkins at this point. Obviously, Matt Reeves has a really good handle on things. I don't think the director should change anything that they're doing based on reactions some people may have to getting the briefest of glimpses at something for 2 minutes when they have been living with this material for 2 years. So ultimately, no. And considering how positive a lot of the feedback has been here, Rob, I don't think there'd be any need to make those changes at any rate, unless there was something glaring and obvious, but I didn't catch any of that. Rob, how would you respond to something like that? What would your thoughts be as a filmmaker yourself?
Well, I think it's really hard to understand the filmmaking process and how many thousands and thousands of decisions go in to everything. Like, I've heard a lot of people reading wildly different opinions of Robert Pattinson so far in the role. We've heard him say one line of dialogue, which is "I am vengeance." And there's people that have been talking about his Batman voice. I'm like, his Batman voice, he said 3 words in a scene after he beats somebody up. I've had people say, well, they did it already like this in Batman v Superman in the warehouse fight scene. And I'm like, actually, no, they didn't. And I could get into an argument about the difference when you see a continuous take and seeing somebody pummel someone in the face that fast, and how that's actually very different than what we saw in the warehouse fight. But why get into these kinds of things? I just think that the problem that fandom has always had, and I know because I have this problem, we, in our own minds, we all believe that we know best. For whatever our favorite project is, or our favorite franchise, or whatever. I mean, in the case of Star Trek, it's true. I do know best. but I also think that it's not fair, because then that takes away from an artist who's worked with something and has made those tens of thousands of decisions, when you're sitting in an edit bay, you know what footage you have, you know what footage you don't have, you know why you've made design choices that you've made. I mean, I've seen people bitch about the Batmobile in the upcoming The Batman. And if you're a comic fan, you're like, no, that Batmobile looks like it comes out of a Neil Adams comic from the mid-'70s. That was the 70s Batmobile. Well, if you didn't know that and you had no context, you're going to be like, well, that's not as cool as the Batmobiles in Tim Burton's movies. Well, if you didn't know that, then you're going to say, sure, I don't like that. So the problem is that fans sometimes are a little myopic in terms of their viewpoints. And for filmmakers to listen to the myriad of viewpoints that fans have after watching a 2-minute trailer, that therein lies death. One thing that a filmmaker needs is a point of view and an approach that they stick to. Look what happened when the studio decided to pivot on Zack Snyder they second-guessed themselves. And when you start second-guessing yourself making a movie, you're dead in the water. Now, the Sonic the Hedgehog thing was different because that was a design element that they could actually fix. And I thought that when we saw the trailer at CinemaCon, it was like, that was not good. And part of it was that design. So sometimes, okay, 1 in a million, you get fans going, yeah, we should do this, and it works. But filmmakers, you've got to, these are visions that begin years in advance. And I don't think you can second guess anything by looking at a trailer. Because if you listen to fans, Heath Ledger never would have been Joker. Michael Keaton never would have been Batman. Patty Jenkins probably wouldn't have directed Wonder Woman. So I think more often than not, we do get good stuff.
And it doesn't mean we as fans don't have a right to critique or to criticize. But like, for instance, I love this Batman trailer. There are 2 little nitpicks I had, which we talked about yesterday, right? I didn't like the Bruce Wayne hair. I don't like him having the longer hair.
Right.
And I personally didn't like the I'm vengeance line in a live action thing. Do I think for 1 second that Matt Reeves should go, oh no, well, I better go and get Robert Pattinson to cut his hair and reshoot that shot? No, absolutely not. Do not listen to me, Matt. I'm just saying that I did or didn't like one particular thing, but I'm just seeing a 2-minute thing out of context. So We'll wait and see. Please don't change anything based on my criticism, but that doesn't mean you as a fan or I as a fan or all of us as fans don't have the right to say what we like and don't like. Of course we do. Yeah. But we can say we didn't like something and something didn't work for us, and yet still say, but you know what? We're just gonna wait for the movie to come out. I don't like this right now. I don't like this right now. And that's cool. Let's see how it actually works in the real movie, and then let it come, and then let it happen. And I trust Matt Reeves, and I think he's going to deliver something really, really special.
But
and
oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, like the thing about the hair, I too sort of felt like you did, that it looked a little not what I would expect from Batman. However, if you see it in the context of the whole movie and you have time to get used to it over the course of the story that they're telling, and maybe it seems more natural based on the film, then it could work. But we're being presented Bruce Wayne hair that we've never seen before in a quick context. And I agree with you. That was a little bit like, that's an interesting fashion choice for Bruce Wayne. Not what I would have expected. But to me, it was something that stuck out in that trailer. But when you see it in the context of, say, a 2+ hour movie, and you're presented the character of Bruce Wayne in a way we haven't seen before, maybe that becomes just part of the character, and you don't even notice it. But in a trailer, you would. So you bump on that, as I did a little bit, the way you did. That doesn't mean we're wrong, but we haven't been given enough context to get used to it yet.
No, and that's exactly the point. And how many times have we all seen things that we didn't like at first, and then we see it in context and we go, oh, you know what? I really like it. Like I didn't like the animation style of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse until I saw the movie. And then I'm like, oh, this totally worked, And so I trust Matt Reeves. I think this trailer was spectacular. And you know what? You know what the funny thing is too? nothing other than like the CGI-ness of Cheetah in the one Wonder Woman 84 trailer. But as a whole, I like the trailer. I like just about everything I saw come out of there. So I'm just looking forward to seeing what they do here. Question here is, guys, what do you think about that? Do you have any element that you saw come out of DC FanDome that made you go, oh, I really think they need to change this before the movie comes out? Maybe you can think of a couple. Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Eli. And Eli writes, "Hey, John and crew. So I was wondering if you heard that Tenet will only be shown in drive-ins if the movie theaters are open in that area. I understand that Christopher Nolan wants people to see his movie in a movie theater, but we are living in strange times. Thanks, and bring on the filthy." All right, man. Thanks a lot for sending that in. And yeah, the strangest piece of news came out that I came across yesterday. And it was basically that Warner Brothers let exhibitors know that, yeah, you may see Tenet in a drive-in, which is like the one thing that can be open just about everywhere. Like drive-ins are even open in California, where regular movie theaters are not for the most part. But we're not going to let drive-ins play the movie if they're in a city where regular movie theaters aren't open. This comes to us from Variety, who wrote, "But 2 weeks ahead of its domestic debut, scheduled for September 3rd, Warner Brothers offered some clarity to exhibitors about its plans for Nolan's latest. The studio issued strict guidelines to drive-in operators across the country, mandating that Tenet can only play in outdoor venues, aka drive-ins, if theaters in that particular market are also open." So the basic idea here is that if you live in a town where the movie theaters are open, which is the case for many places across the US and other places, then your local drive-in may be playing Tenet as well. However, if you live in a town where regular movie theaters are not open, like where Rob, you and I live in the Los Angeles area, then the drive-ins, which are open here, will not be permitted to show Tenet. I like what Eli said in the email, saying, look, we are living in certain particular times right now. We're living in particular times right now, Rob, where I think these studios have to understand, hey, for some of us, going to a drive-in is the real only option we have. Why would you not allow the one lifeline some places have to the movies, which is the drive-ins? Why would you not allow these places to show these movies? The folks over at IndieWire actually decided, one of their journalists there, Tom Brueggemann, wrote the following. He said, "Why Tenet is limiting drive-in screenings. Here's the logic behind the policy." So he throws up a couple of possibilities here. One is presentation is critical to Christopher Nolan. That's no secret. And even Eli, you kind of alluded to this in your message here. Christopher Nolan is all about the theatrical experience, and he is hypersensitive about the proper visual and audio presentation that audiences experience his movies with. I'm a fan of the drive-in, but let's be honest. The drive-in is not the world's best exhibition of movies. I mean, we went to go watch Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse at the drive-in a couple of weeks ago, and in the dark scenes, it's hard to tell what's going on. And you're listening to the sound coming across the FM radio, which isn't always the best. And we still had a blast, don't get me wrong. Christopher Nolan is hypersensitive about how people experience his movies. Okay, there's that. But also he goes on to a couple of things about like pressuring theaters and also protecting theaters, that there's also a philosophy behind there to say to the movie theater operators, look, movie theater operators, we are standing with you. We believe in the theatrical experience and we stand with you, and we want to do everything in our power to emphasize the importance of the indoor regular theatrical experience. And by the way, if you wanted to know that for sure, just go back to DC FanDome. In every single panel at DC FanDome, all we heard them say over and over again, Rob, was in movie theaters, the theatrical experience. Can't wait for you to join us in theaters. Warner Brothers is very big on this. And I appreciate that. I do. As a fan, as a lifelong fan of the movie-going experience, I appreciate Warner Brothers' position on this and their philosophy of this and their support of the movie-going experience. I do. But Rob, we live in an extraordinary period of time right now where you have a lot of fans wanting to support you and have supported you in the past and want to support your upcoming movies and all that kind of stuff, that we simply have no other alternative. We don't have the option to go to an indoor theater to go see Tenet. And you're saying that because I can't watch it in the best possible way, and under normal circumstances I would want to, you're saying since you can't watch it in the way we want you to watch it, we're just going to make sure you can't watch it at all. When your neighbor, 15 miles cross state line or whatever, might be able to. So I find myself in this position, Rob, where I appreciate the idea, but also feeling like you've got to be sensitive to the moment we're in. And just for this moment, you're opening this big movie, and I get it. Drive-ins aren't going to drive a lot of box office. The drive-in theaters make up for about 1.8% of the overall box office totals that gets made in the U.S. I guess not a huge money thing, but it's just in this moment. I would think you would want to look at it a little bit differently. Anyway, Rob, how do you see this whole situation right now?
Well, I mean, for us, we don't have a choice. I mean, we don't have anywhere to go see a movie here if you live in Los Angeles, unless, you do go to a drive-in. And I look, there is a financial reality about this movie that they can't get away from. And that's and a $250 million movie. It needs to make $1 billion really to break even. And Christopher Nolan gets 20% of the gross. I mean, he's got an incredible deal. So it behooves him to have this movie open across the world in movie theaters so the most amount of people can go see it. But when that isn't a reality and they're opening it at a time where coronavirus cases are going down some places, they're surging in others, what do you do? And I think what you do in that case is whatever venue people are going to go pay to see this movie, you got to take it. I mean, you really do. Otherwise, wait to open the movie when more people can see it and you can get more of an audience. I just find it strange that they didn't push the release back further, and it's going to become, I mean, by the time you and I get to see this movie, unless we go see it or whatever, what's it going to be? 2 months, 3 months, 4 months away? But I mean, you might as well buy the Blu-ray.
Now, look, at the same time, you and I both know that Christopher Nolan likes to see himself as a champion of movie theaters and of the movie-going experience.
Yeah, and so are we all.
Yeah, and so are we all. He really wants to get Tenet out there as soon as possible to really help kickstart everything. And I get it, because I've been getting a lot of emails from people saying, hey, I actually tried to go and get tickets for Unhinged, and my theaters are sold out. I've gotten people writing me saying, hey, I tried to go get tickets for New Mutants. It's sold out. Now, granted, we're talking limited capacity theaters and all that kind of stuff, but I think Christopher Nolan wants to be a part of that, of wanting to be one of the big things that really keeps the movie going, the movie theaters floating. And I get that. So I understand he wants to release as soon as possible. What I don't understand is that for the limited number of areas, because a lot of the places across the country are now allowed to have their movie theaters open, or will be very shortly. Now, whether that's smart or dumb, that's a debate for another time. But considering there's just a couple places, significant places, New York, LA, I mean, hey, if you're going to open the movie anyway, and we simply don't have our movie theaters open here, believe me, if your movie's good, Chris, if I can call you Chris, if your movie's good, Chris, guess what? I, and a lot of fools like me, we're going to rush to a drive-in. If we live in an area where there's no open movie theaters, we're going to rush to a drive-in to go and watch your movie. And then, if it's good, when it's open up in theaters later on, we're going to go back and watch it again in theaters so I can see it in a better presentation. Again, I just don't see the drawback. What's the harm, Rob? That's my question right now. What is the harm of allowing drive-ins to show this if the theaters aren't open. It's not like we have a choice. It's not like they're saying, oh, Los Angeles, you have to choose between having movie theaters open or drive-ins open. And if you make it just drive-ins, then we're not going to show. No. The theaters are closed. There's nothing we can do about that. What is that? Rob, if I had to put it to you and ask you to play devil's advocate here, what is the harm in places where theaters can't be open to let it be exhibited in drive-ins right now? What's the harm?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I could say play devil's advocate, but look, I know where he's coming from because I've been a home theater advocate since the very beginning. Anything that you could do from the time I was a kid getting my first VCR, I've had some kind of surround sound when there really wasn't good surround sound. I love the theatrical experience. But you know what? Most people don't care. If they can see the picture and they can hear the movie, that's okay. I'm an audio video file. I have been my whole life, but most people, and look, going to see a movie in laser projected IMAX with that thunderous sound, there's nothing better. It's orgasmic. It's like having sex with somebody who really knows what they're doing. It's amazing. And I'm not saying you always want to have that experience. Why would you not? But the fact is, you don't always get that kind of experience. And if you're going to wait for that, if you're going to wait to have the ultimate experience in the ultimate theater, well, you're not going to see a lot of movies. And there are a lot of people that just want to be engrossed in a great story that'll watch a movie coming out of, God forbid, their TV speakers. And that's okay for them. So what you're doing is you're asking people to forego seeing a movie they're interested in unless they have the primo A-list #1 experience of seeing the film, whereas most people, it's lost on them anyway. What they want is to experience the story and the characters, and that's what they're looking for. I mean, hey man, when I saw Blade Runner 2049, it was like a religious experience. It was so beautiful and loud, and it was great, and I loved it, and I wouldn't have traded it for the world. But you know what? I also enjoy watching it at home too. I wouldn't have liked to see it the same way, but most people don't care.
And
they don't care.
Here's the other thing they're not taking into consideration because of the moment we're in. Even if the movie theaters in New York, Los Angeles, whatever, were open right now, even if they were open right now, there's going to be a chunk of people out there who may not feel comfortable going into a movie theater right now, understandably, given our current circumstances, but would feel much more comfortable or much more secure and safe going to a drive-in, being in their own car. So even if the theaters were open here right now, there would be a chunk of people that would prefer to go to a drive-in at the moment because of the safety issue. Anyway, while I very, very, very much appreciate Warner Brothers' overall philosophy here and supporting the movie theaters, you got to take the moment into consideration. And I think they're being a little bit short-sighted. Question here is, guys, what do you think about this idea that Tenet will not play in drive-ins unless movie theaters are open in that same city as well? Let me know your thoughts. Jump down to the comment section below and leave your opinions there. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Kyle Blasberg. And Kyle Blasberg writes, "Hey, John, like you, I absolutely loved the Batman trailer. With the very dark, gritty tone to the trailer, and Warner Brothers clearly having shown a willingness to do rated R comic book films with Joker and Birds of Prey, what do you think the chances are that this new Matt Reeves Batman film will be indeed rated R?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Kyle. And yeah, probably the #1 question I've had since DC FanDome, Rob, besides what did you think of the Batman trailer, has been, do you think the Batman will be rated R? Right? And this has come in on chats. This has come in the email submissions. This has come in all the time. A lot of people are asking, what are the chances of this thing being R? The first thing I would say is, and I touched on this the other day, a lot of people saw that one glorious moment in the trailer where Batman is just wrecking that fool, right? And people are looking at that and saying, oh, well, that's going to be rated R. I'm like, really? But Batman's punching a guy in the face. That's rated R. And we don't even see the guy getting punched in the face. That's not rated R. I mean, I've seen much more brutal stuff, Rob, on the Hannibal television show. I saw way more brutal stuff on the Hannibal television show, not rated R. So I don't really think about that. But still, there is that question. Is this something that we can look at right now? Is this something that could actually be a thing in this moment that we're in? And you know what? While I personally think there is no need for this Batman movie to be rated R, none. While I don't feel like there's personally any need for this to be an R-rated thing, there is some legitimate arguments to be made about why it could end up being rated R and why it might not be that bad of an idea. So let's go over here and take a look at this. The first thing I want to look at as a pro to the idea of Batman being rated R is Joker. I mean, just look at Joker, Rob. They put out Joker R-rated last year, and what was the results for them? Not only was Joker a billion-dollar film, it was nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards, only the second comic book movie in history to do so, and it won one of the top prizes at the Academy Awards with Joaquin Phoenix winning Best Actor for his portrayal. So that's got to be seen as an absolute pro as to why legitimately Warner Brothers may be looking at it. Another thing is this. Doing R-rated stuff. Now, look, I'm a big fan of the MCU, a big fan of what DC has done and all that kind of stuff, and I just want a good movie out of each. I don't care how they compare, whatever. But, you know, if you want to do certain things to, you know, differentiate yourselves from what the other guy is doing, the R-rated material is one of those things. Because you know what the MCU is not doing, Rob? They ain't doing R-rated material. Deadpool's up in the air, but I still don't think they're going to do Deadpool rated R. But we'll see there. But it's another thing. That is a good, solid argument to be made for why we could possibly see them do Batman rated R. Another pro I want to throw out there. Not only does it differentiate and make itself unique from the MCU, doing this Batman as rated R would differentiate it and make unique from any other Batman movie we've seen. You know, Rob, I've talked on this show recently about how, you know, whenever you do a Joker or a Batman per se, the first thing that the filmmakers do is, how do we make sure this, at its core, this is clearly the Joker or clearly the Batman, yet a totally different Batman or Joker than you've ever seen on screen before. Still essentially Batman or Joker, but still unique and different from any iteration we've seen. Doing an R-rated Batman movie would be not only something to distinct yourself from the MCU, but also from the other Batman movie. Now, that being said, I do think there are a couple of cons to take into consideration here. If we're going to talk the Joker as a pro, look what you can do with an R-rated comic book movie, Rob. Well, then you got to look at Birds of Prey. You got to look at Birds of Prey, which was, you know, what did that movie make? 200 million worldwide? If they're lucky,
maybe
didn't do great. So if you're going to point at Joker, you got to point at Birds of Prey. Also, there could be the consideration that it's too unlike Batman, because that's kind of tied into the next one. The source material is basically PG-13. You know, I remember when we did an episode of Heroes and John Schnepp talked about this a lot. He said, look, if you know the Batman source material, if you know the true essence of the comics are PG-13. They really are, Schnepp would say. So not only would it be so unlike Batman, it would really be a departure from the source material as well. So that's one thing. Also, look at The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight was considered by some like maybe one of the darkest comic book movies ever made. It was truly dark. It was truly gritty. And guess what? It was PG-13. Now, also, if you want to look at Matt Reeves, I mean, he did his War for the Planet of the Apes, which is quite gritty, you know, kind of dark, apocalyptic in many ways. And he managed to do that PG-13. I think there's a lot of strong arguments to be made here. Now, again, I personally fall on the side of there is no need at all for Matt Reeves' The Batman to be rated R, to be as good as it can be. I don't need tits and F-bombs dropped in my Batman movie to make it a better Batman movie. I don't think that makes it a better Batman movie. I thought the tone of Matt Reeves' trailer was PG-13. I thought you could do this dark, gritty thing as a PG-13 thing. I think it would be fine. But even though I take that position myself, I acknowledge there are some strong arguments between Joker, something to differentiate yourself from the other films. And hey, by the way, you know what? Let me throw in one more pro. Let's throw this in here. No strings. I could just see Matt Reeves going, there are no strings on me. You know, just tell Matt Reeves, you know what? Do whatever the F you want, Matt. Now, Matt's he's had that right, and he's made his films PG-13, but they could go to Matt Reeves and say, you know what? You want Batman and Gordon to show up at a murder scene, and there's naked, mutilated bodies all over the place? If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. So, Rob, I fall on one side personally, but I think there are strong arguments for and against the idea of Matt Reeves' Batman being rated R. What do I think they're going to do? I think they're going to go PG-13. What do I think they should do? I think they should do PG-13. But those can be two different things. Rob, what do you think about, I guess, my reasoning for what are pros for going rated R, what are cons for going rated R, and what other ones would you add? And what do you think Warner Brothers is ultimately going to do?
Well, to be honest, I was pretty surprised by the tone of that trailer. And, you know, Batman, again, the fight scene, the beatdown scene, that was pretty extreme. And if you're a kid, like, I wouldn't want my 8-year-old, if I had an 8-year-old, to see something that's that violent. Because one of the things, like, even the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, like, if you watch The Dark Knight, Joker is machine gunning down dudes in that bank heist in the beginning of the movie. There's no blood squibs. You know, and that consciously, if there were blood squibs, it would have made those sequences a lot more violent. And if you look at the Nolan films, you don't see blood. There's no blood squibs when people get shot or anything like that, because that lessens the impact of the actual violence. So tonally, sometimes things are just tonally R-rated. It's the way they make you feel. And this Batman movie, at least from this trailer, looked pretty not kid-friendly. Let's put it that way. So I would say the Batman character in general is, like you said, a PG-13 character. The Joker is a homicidal maniac. So I think it's okay. You can get away with making an R-rated Joker movie. I think they're going to have a much more difficult time getting away with an R-rated Batman, even though they may have no choice. I think they've told Matt Reeves to go make the movie that he wanted to make. But, you know, I mean, he made the Planet of the Apes movies aren't exactly a walk in the park. And kids like Planet of the Apes. And those films were pretty heady, and they dealt with some pretty difficult subject matter. So Matt Reeves can go dark and still not go R. I probably, if I had to make a guess, I would say these movies are going to be PG-13, skirting the edge of R. But it's because of the expectation in the marketplace of what a Batman movie is. How is a parent going to be like, Mom, I need to go see the Batman? No, you can't see that. It's rated R. But Mom, Batman's my favorite character. I don't think Warner Brothers wants a revolt of every, under 10 child in the world when they want to go see a Batman movie. So I think it's going to be PG-13, but I think it's going to be unlike any Batman movie we've seen before.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we got that sense from the trailer. Again, I've just personally I'm not saying there's not a good argument. I just haven't yet heard the argument how making it R would fundamentally make this movie better. And especially when you look at what they're able to get away with a PG-13. But
John, would Return of the Jedi be better if it was rated R? Would Back to the Future be better if it was rated R? Jaws was rated PG. I mean, I don't think a rating necessarily matters. I think what matters is the story and the characters true to itself. And sometimes going dark for being dark's sake is not exactly the best way to go.
Right. But after seeing this trailer, are you going to be surprised at all if we find out in like 3 months that the Batman's going to get an R rating? Are you going to be surprised? No. Yeah, so no. I agree. I'm not going to be surprised either, because I think there is some significant stuff there. But I do think, if I had to put $1 on it, I think they're going to be going PG-13. And guys, I wanted to know what you guys thought about this. What do you think about the idea about potentially, maybe the Batman movie getting an R rating. So I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. And the question of the day, I simply put this in the community tab of the YouTube channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel so you can get notifications of the community postings as well. Go ahead, take a second, go click on that subscribe button. But the question of the day today was simply this. The Batman trailer was certainly gritty. Do you think the movie should be rated R, like Joker, or PG-13, like The Dark Knight? We discussed this today. I put this up just before the show started. Almost 6,000 of you guys have casted votes already. Right now, 62% of you are saying, so a significant margin, are saying that you think the movie should be rated R. 38% of you are saying it should be rated PG-13. That's where our poll is at right now. I'm going to leave this poll up for you guys to continue to vote on for the rest of the day if you wish. So going over, and once again, it's just in the community tab of the channel. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to our fourth and final main topic of the day. And our fourth and final main topic of the day gets submitted to us by our friend Edgar Wainwright, who writes, "Hey, John and Rob, Blumhouse has been killing it lately. They absolutely have, especially with Invisible Man. I love that movie. I just read that John Carpenter is going to be teaming up with them to make another The Thing movie. I know some people get upset with the idea of remakes, but with Blumhouse and Carpenter involved, I think it could be great. What are your thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, first of all, you're right. Blumhouse has been killing it. Not only have they been killing it with great movies, it's how they're making movies. They're changing the game. Because Jason Blum, he gets this idea for a movie. Okay, cool. And then he pulls out all of his winter coats and starts digging through the pockets to find extra quarters and maybe a $20 bill and whatever. He says, okay, here's the budget for the movie. And they make this movie for like $18 and they make $5 million. You know, it's really crazy what he's been able to do. And sometimes it's not just good movies for cheap budgets. It's just great movies. That Invisible Man that we got to see just before the pandemic hit was such a treat. And I think, what was the budget on that? $6 million? $7 million?
Yeah, something like that. I think
$6 or $7 million. It was crazy what they were able to do. And of course, he just did the Halloween movie, which I thought was probably the best Halloween movie ever made, but I know I'm in the minority on that. But anyway, what happened recently was John Carpenter was just being asked, he was at a festival and being interviewed at a festival. And they said, hey, you know, you're doing this thing with them for Halloween. Any chance you could direct something for Blumhouse? This is what he said. This is what John Carpenter said. I don't know about that, Carpenter said. But we've talked about, I think he's going to be working on The Thing, rebooting The Thing. And I'm involved with that, maybe, down the road. So John Carpenter comes out and says, and he drops us a little bit of a bomb saying, yeah, I'm going to be plugged into The Thing. The idea of doing The Thing. Now, of course, I think it was 2011, Rob, 2011, 2012. They did another The Thing movie with Elizabeth Weinstein, who I love. And it turned out, as you got into the movie, you realize it's actually a prequel to the original Thing. It actually ends with where The Thing begins, which was kind of an interesting little twist near the end. The movie wasn't great, though. It wasn't great by any stretch of the imagination. But still, here we are. Now, there are going to be the regular, like clockwork, throngs of, why remake anything? There's going to be the regular ones of those, but particularly, you know, there's a lot of love for John Carpenter's The Thing and don't want things remade. Although they quickly forget, Rob, that John Carpenter's The Thing was also in itself a remake. It in and of itself was a remake and a reboot, but be that as it may. I got to wonder though, Rob, how many people will have a better disposition towards something like this, knowing that it's number one, Blumhouse, and number two, if Carpenter himself is actually involved. Now, what Carpenter just said is pretty much the extent of the information we have. We don't know if, when he says remake, is it truly a remake? Is it a sequel? Is it a, told at a different half of the planet while the events of the first thing are going on? Is it another? I mean, who knows? And John Carpenter, by the way, didn't really explicitly lay out what his role would be, if any, in it. But Rob, knowing that Blumhouse is looking at The Thing and that Carpenter is probably going to be involved in some way, shape, or form, what's your thoughts on this?
Well, look, I love John Carpenter's The Thing. I think it's one of his best films. I think it's one of the great sci-fi remakes of all time. I mean, my triptych of great sci-fi remakes is Invasion of the Body Snatchers, The Thing, and The Fly. I think if they're going to do it, they have to do something new and different. The same way their Invisible Man version was a reinvention of that mythology. Now, what I would be interested in, I don't want to see a bunch of dudes and girls trapped in the Antarctic again. Who cares? What would really be interesting is what happens if the Thing gets to the mainland. Like, what would happen?
Kind of like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, like you've got somebody goes back there and they find, I don't know, MacReady's frozen body along with Child's frozen body, and somehow the Thing gets into, it starts to spread in our world. What would that look like? And I think that would be, I mean, one of the things that there's a really interesting element of the Thing that they never dealt with. I mean, it's in the movie. The Thing is building its own spaceship in John Carpenter's movie. You find it in Wilford Brimley's cabin. And so that means the Thing is intelligent. Like it can get around. And what if that kind of intelligence coupled with what the Thing is doing gets into a populated area? What could that mean? I mean, you could tell John Carpenter calls the Thing the first of his Apocalypse trilogy. You could really get further into that idea. I'd love to see that. I would love. I just don't know how you do it on an $8 million Blumhouse budget, but I certainly would like to see that, and I would really like to see physical effects again and all of those things. So I'm interested. I was not a fan of their new Halloween at all.
Really? I thought it was the best Halloween movie ever.
Oh, I look, I have a long-standing relationship with the very first Halloween. I just was not a fan of. I understood what they were going for. It was just the way it was done. I think I liked the story, but I didn't like the way it was. Yeah, but
it's the first Halloween movie I actually liked, so I'm surprised to hear you say that.
The first Halloween meant so much to me when I was younger, but I don't know, man. It's got to be good because the Thing is so classic. And we see it's not easy to make a movie like that.
No, it's not. And you got to have the right hands doing it. And we'll see. Question here is for you guys. What do you think about this? Do you think, hey, listen, so many people today haven't even seen the Thing. It's been forever. It could really benefit from updated technology, a new fresh take on the story. Or you're like, hey, you know what? It's just classic. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Where are you on that right now? Especially when you consider about the players involved, if Carpenter himself is going to be involved. Does that change your mind at all? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down, let's now move over and start taking your live comments and questions that you guys have been firing in. Once again, you can simply use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, streamelements.com/movieblog.tv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason, of course. And of course, you're going to be supporting this show at the same time. So let's jump on over and start getting to your live questions. We're going to start things off here with Uptown Geek, who writes, "Peace from New York City. I was thrilled to hear that the Snyder Cut will be bundled up after its release to be viewed as a complete movie. Do you think that the Snyder Cut will make it to physical media? It would be fantastic. Got to complete my Man of Steel trilogy." Well, I mean, there's a couple things about that. Number one, I don't understand why they need to then put it out again on HBO Max as one complete movie, because if the 4 episodes are all there, all I got to do is click a play button. And I get to watch it as one complete movie anyway. But okay, more power to you. If you want to put it up as a 4-hour version, put it up as a 4-hour version. I don't know, Rob. My guess is they will not put this out on physical media. The main reason being is, what division of Warner Brothers is footing the bill for this? HBO Max. HBO Max is footing the bill to complete this Snyder Cut movie so it can attract people to HBO Max. Putting it out on physical media would seem counterproductive if their goal is to get people to sign up to HBO Max. Because you and I have talked about, Rob, that the lifeblood of all these streaming services is ultimately going to be what is your exclusive content. So they could put it out on physical media, but I doubt it. I think HBO Max is footing the bill on this because they want it to be an HBO Max exclusive. So I'm going to say, I won't say it's impossible. I'm going to say I doubt it'll go out on physical media. What do you think, Rob?
Well, HBO does have a long tradition of putting stuff out on physical media.
They do.
But afterwards. And I think there's some people, I think in the case of Zack Snyder, he likes putting stuff out on physical media. And I could see that happening, but it'll happen like a year later, and the market for physical media is dropping precipitously every year. And like you said, most people today, especially younger people, they're not, physical media is, as I'm constantly being reminded of, oh, Rob, physical media is so 20th century. Putting a disc into a machine, it's like ancient history. So I can see that I do expect a physical media release, but it's not going to be a priority because, like you said, they are using this. They want people to sign up for HBO Max. And indeed, they've got HBO Max has a new Ridley Scott science fiction series coming on that I'm actually really excited about. I'm going to get HBO Max just to watch that series. And I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to sign up. I can't wait to see the Snyder Cut. They're taking the exact example from what Tarantino did with The Hateful Eight. I mean, he broke it into 4-hour-long parts. There's a precedent for it. So I think it's great. I mean, I think I can't wait, to be honest. I'm excited.
All right. Let's move on here. Next up, we've got Keaton Toothman, who writes, well, John, it's over. After 6 grueling months, I ventured out to the Regal last night to see Unhinged. Oh, that's good for you, man. I even went 15 minutes early just to sit in my very back seat. Only 3 others in the theater. It was an IMAX just to be zen. Oh, John. I missed this more than I could have known. I slid mask. I guess you mean you slid on your mask. Inhaled my popcorn, and every second there was therapy. I'm home again, John. As the lights lowered, my grin was ear to ear. If home is where the heart is, mine is in the theater. Love you all. Well, that's great to hear, man. And I'm a little bit jealous. I have still not stepped foot inside of a movie theater as of this recording. I have still not been there myself. I am looking forward to it. Deeply and greatly. And yeah, man, there's just nothing like being in the movie theater, dude. And I'm a little bit envious that you had a chance to go and do that. And I'm glad you did. Again, guys, if you live in a place where you can take advantage of it, please also make sure, be smart about it. Follow all the safety precautions, follow all the safety procedures, do it smart. Don't be an idiot. Don't endanger other people around you, and do it the right way. But I'm a little bit envious, Keaton. I'm a little bit envious. All right. Mischievous Gremlin writes, the first poster for The Haunting of Bly Manor came on the net today. That brings up this question I've heard a lot of good things about The Haunting of Hill House, but I haven't had the chance to watch it. Have you, and what are your thoughts about it? I know my wife loved it, Rob. Did you have a chance to watch The Haunting of Hill House?
Yeah, I loved it too, and I can't wait to see the follow-up. I thought The Haunting of Hill House, it's not like it was totally perfect, but there's a lot of really good stuff in it, and I liked it a lot.
Do you know much about this follow-up? Because I really know almost nothing about it. I only heard about it for the first time a few days ago.
No, I do not know much about it at all.
All right. Well, there you go. All right, next up, we go to Casey McNatt, who writes, hey, John, this might be an unpopular opinion, but if the Batman does look to become a trilogy, I really hope they leave the Joker out of it. I think it's time for other members of Batman's rogue gallery to shine, starting with Riddler, Catwoman, and Penguin. Well, they're doing that with the first one. I just don't know. Listen, I hear a lot of people say that if you do new Batman stuff, just leave Joker out of it. And you know what? And what I'm going to say is unpopular. I don't agree with that. I agree maybe waiting a little bit, but doing Batman, and especially if you're looking at doing a trilogy, if you're going to do Batman without Joker, that's like making an Ahab movie without Moby Dick. That's like making a Superman movie, but he's not from Krypton and he doesn't fly. To me, the Joker is so intrinsically connected to who and what Batman is that I think if you're doing a one film, yeah, you don't have to do Joker. But if you're doing a trilogy, I honestly don't know how you ignore that fundamental part. Joker isn't just another member of Batman's rogues gallery. He is a part of in a sense of juxtaposition, he almost helps define what Batman is. And I just don't know that you can do a trilogy without bringing that up. It's like doing Aquaman, but he's never in water. That's just what it feels like to me. Rob, what do you think about the idea of doing a trilogy of films without ever having Batman in there?
Well, to me, yeah, okay. I'm always reluctant. I mean, unless you're making Lord of the Rings and you have source material that you can draw from. I mean, you could make a trilogy as long as it's great. I'm all in. As long as it's a great story, well told, with good characters, and it's a fully realized vision, I'm in. But it just saying you're setting out to make this kind of a trilogy that's maybe going to have a certain character or not seems premature.
All right, let's move on here. Next up comes us from Uptown Geek, who writes, no Man of Steel 2 thus far. Do you think DC and Warner Brothers might be following a formula to reintroduce their two biggest guns back into the DCEU? For example, Bats in the Flash movie and maybe Superman and Black Adam. The Rock did hint at Superman and FanDome. I personally thought The Rock did more than hint. I thought Dwayne The Rock Johnson in his Black Adam presentation just came this short of just saying, hey, listen, everybody, Henry Cavill as Superman is going to be in Black Adam. I felt like he just came that short of it. Like, I felt like that was probably his, like telling everybody that he was going to be there. I don't know, because it's not like Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill have been gone for 20 years from the role, right? From the universe. I don't know if there's really a reintroduction to be done. I personally think that Ben's appearance in Flash is going to be relatively small, and it's going to be a one and done. I hope that's not true. And there's a good argument to be made of it not being true. But that's the way I think they're going to go with it. But again, I was disappointed, but only a little bit, because we talked about this in the days leading up to DC FanDome. Somebody asked, John, are you going to be disappointed if they don't announce Henry Cavill? I said, yeah, a little bit, but we already know he's coming back, right? Like the major trades all already reported that Henry Cavill and Warner Brothers are already in the final negotiations of negotiating his return. We already know that that's happening. So if they don't announce it at DC FanDome, yeah, a little bit disappointed, but not terribly, because we know he's coming back. So I don't know if there's any formula there they're following at all. We'll just see. There's so many unanswered questions here right now. There's a million different possibilities, which is part of the excitement of it all, actually. All right, next up, Jacob Hirsch writes, hey, gang, why do I feel like they are about to pull an X-Force situation with the Suicide Squad? Part of me hopes they do, but the other part of me feels like it will be redundant. Thoughts? Thanks, and keep up the great work. Jacob, I'm going to be honest with you. I have no idea what you're talking about. Why do I feel they're about to pull an X-Force situation with Suicide Squad? In what way? I don't know, Rob. Do you know what it is Jacob is referring to when he says, why do I feel they're about to pull an X-Force?
Well, killing all the members of the X-Force in the beginning, so you only have a core group left, or, a few dudes. How everybody got massacred.
Oh, yeah, that's what it could mean.
Yeah.
I mean, they killed off a couple in the first Suicide Squad movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of cannon fodder in the Suicide Squad film, but I think, you're going to have to build the squad first. I don't think they're going to be all killed in the opening. But we'll see. Like maybe during a training sequence, I don't know. But all I know is I think it's going to be wildly entertaining, no matter what we get. Because
look, there are a lot of characters. When you looked at that panel for Suicide Squad, and they brought out all it's like there's like 18 people there.
Right.
Rob, if you had to put money on the character that will die first, like if you had to say, okay, who knows, maybe they all live, but if there's one guy's going to die, this is the one that's going to die first, who do you think it's going to be?
Polka Dot Man.
I agree. I think it's going to be, even though I think James loves the character, I think it's going to be Polka Dot Man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a good bet.
He might be cheeky and Polka Dot Man is the last man standing. Could be.
All right. Next up, Jesse writes, If you are justice, please do not lie. What is the price of your blind eye? I'm so glad the Riddler's finally getting another shot on the big screen. I very much didn't care for Carey's, and I always thought he could have been had great cinematic potential. Hey, listen, you know what? I didn't mind Jim Carrey's for the movie he was in. You know, when you look at that world that Batman movie took place in, and that circumstance, then Jim Carrey's Riddler wasn't bad. But you're right, the Riddler's always kind of been treated a certain way. And even if you look at something like the Gotham TV series, like the way they did Riddler there, their Edward Nygma there was kind of weird. But, oh man, going like a Seven sort of villain feel for it with Paul Dano, who I still argue to this day would be considered, like more people would be talking about Paul Dano because he gave one of the great performances in a long time in There Will Be Blood. But unfortunately for him, he was in a movie with the greatest actor of all time, who happened to give, in my estimation, the greatest performance of all time with Daniel Day-Lewis. But yeah, man, Deshi, dude, that character is going to be so balls. It's going to be so balls. All right, next up, Koba writes, I know the movies will not be linked to the Snyder Cut, but if it does well, could HBO Max do more with it? Maybe let Snyder do a sequel. Here's the thing. I've been getting 1,000 questions, Rob, about, hey, if the Snyder Cut on HBO Max is awesome and everybody loves it, will it be doing this? And of course, my argument was we've already gotten a couple of Zack Snyder movies, his DC movies, that have been out there, and half the audience hated it and half the critics hated it. I don't know why that would magically change. I don't think HBO Max is looking at this as any kind of a long-term thing, but winning cures everything. And if for whatever reason, and I think it's a stretch, but if, you know, it comes out on HBO Max and everybody who never did like Zack Snyder's iteration, all these misguided people who didn't like Man of Steel, I'm just kidding, it's all subjective, you're allowed to not like Man of Steel, but if all of a sudden, magically, people suddenly appreciated Zack Snyder's take on the DCU that didn't like it before, look, that's the beautiful thing about life, man. Everything changes. So I don't think they have long-term plans for it, but that can change. That can change quick. When people smell money, weird things can happen. Rob, what do you think?
I agree with you. And I think, like you just said, if there's money involved and money to be made, things change.
Yep. Suddenly you're available. I was tied up Friday, but there's money to be made. I'm free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
It ain't show friends, it's show business.
Show business. An anonymous viewer writes, much like when Lawrence Fishburne played Perry White in Man of Steel. A little bit of a typo there. Much like when Lawrence Fishburne played Perry White in Man of Steel, it took me all of 3 seconds to accept Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon. I know it's only the trailer, but he just feels right for the role. Dude, with the moment, Rob, you remember, you were on the show with me when the news came out that Jeffrey Wright was going to be Gordon. I'm like, I'm not I don't care about X actor and X role, but Jeffrey Wright as Commissioner Gordon is just one of those planets aligning kind of castings to me. I mean, as great as the idea of J.K. Simmons playing J. Jonah Jameson, it's borderline perfect. So I've been excited about him playing that ever since. And again, I'm not going to get ahead of myself, Rob. We never really saw him do much in the trailer yet.
Right.
But it felt pretty good. What do you think about, now that you've seen the trailer, what do you think about Jeffrey Wright being Gordon?
I'm in. I think it's great. I love Jeffrey Wright as Felix Leiter in the Bond films. I think he's really good. I've liked him for a long time.
And of course, he's going to be in the new Bond film once again. Is there
a new Bond film, John?
I heard rumors. Who knows? We'll see. It's not real till it's in theaters.
I wish somebody could say, I heard a rumor that you'll release No Time to Die on pay-per-view. And I'd love to see something come out of someone's mouth and go into Barbara Broccoli's head.
Little Umbrella Academy there.
I know.
Little Umbrella Academy there. I like it. All right. Cameron Ross writes, hey, John, do you think DC should stick to FanDome every year and skip DC San Diego Comic-Con, or was it not a big enough success? Personally, I think it was great and could see them apart from Marvel just to be an event about DC. I mean, it's possible, but you got to take a couple things into consideration. And I heard one of the guys from one of the AT&T guys was talking about this, saying, look, one of the things we understand is that one of the things contributing to whatever success that DC FanDome had was the fact that it was the first thing we've gotten in 6 months. It's the circumstances we're in. It's the situation that we're in. That's why what I was saying off the top of today's show, it was really such a gift. It was really a gift. If everything's back to normal, is this the best way to go? I don't know that I think that. I don't know that I think that, because here's the thing. You know, you look at something like what I can see DC doing, Rob, is doing something like what Marvel does and what Disney does. Disney has their own event, D23. Could I see DC and Warner Brothers doing their own thing that's an actual physical in-person thing? Like next year in Florida, we are having DC FanDome, and they turned the convention center in Florida into like the DC FanDome. Because I'll tell you what, when they were, even during FanDome, they were showing clips of like the Brazil Comic-Con when you've got thousands of fans there, and it's like you can just, even watching it remotely, the energy level difference from watching a panel that's being done in front of 6,000 screaming fans is a way better experience, even just watching it on my computer monitor, than watching 5 people on Zoom in an edited, pre-recorded sort of thing. Ultimately, the thing we care about is when they play the trailer. I mean, that's ultimately what everybody cares about. But the live event, even if I have to watch it on my computer monitor, is always better. It's always the energy is there. You can feel it. It's better. So I don't know if, when the circumstances are different, if DC wants to stick to this online press event, or if maybe, because listen, Marvel and Disney have had tremendous success with D23. And it like takes over the news cycle for like 3 or 4 days when D23 happens and all that kind of stuff. I could see DC FanDome continuing as its own thing, but actually making it a physical in-person thing, and then put all the trailers and everything out online after they happen there. Give it the real energy of a live event with real fans. I could see them doing that. So I don't know, Rob, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, why not? This could be, I think this has changed a lot of things. And one of the things that we saw about FanDome is that, you know, even if you're in Hall H, you can only get 6,000 or 7,000 people in there. This was a global event that they were able to drum up interest and excitement. I mean, who didn't tune into this and who wasn't watching it? The bang they got for their buck. I don't know how much they spent on this thing. I don't know what the budget was, but it was worth it. Why go back? Why do anything other than this from now on?
I see. My main argument about it is next year, fingers crossed, we're not going to be living in a pandemic where nobody's had anything for 6 months. And I think if Disney does, because listen, D23 is better than DC FanDome. It's just much better. They put on these great events, all this kind of stuff, but it's live and in person. Brazil Comic-Con is better than DC FanDome. But you take DC FanDome and you make it an actual event where people can go, and you have screaming fans in the audience, and then you take those panels and you put them up online later. Because that's the thing, like at the end of the day, you got to remember, DC FanDome was not an event. It was, they took a bunch of things that they pre-recorded weeks in advance, carefully edited together, and just happened to drop it on YouTube at the same time. Then they just dropped it on streaming in a particular order. It wasn't really an event. They weren't actually hanging out with the fans. It was, they recorded this weeks in advance, blah, blah. I think you take what they did at FanDome, and then they take it one step further and actually create their own actual event. And then learn the lessons that they learned from this digital streaming and incorporate the digital aspect. Make sure people can go there and be there in person, and then people like you and me can watch it on our computer monitors as well. I just think you can get a best of both worlds situation, but I don't know.
But it's hard. Like, if you were to have a live audience, like, I'm a huge fan of the Graham Norton show, the British talk show.
Yeah, he's great, actually.
He's great, but he gets like 3 and 4 people together, and I could see, and he has a huge audience, a huge studio audience. So even if it was live, a live event, watching it after the fact on the internet, it's going to seem, how do you make it different from, say, a talk show, or when Conan O'Brien goes to Comic-Con? It's still ultimately, you've got the fans there, they're watching, and you've got the knowledge and the noise of a crowd, the knowledge that an audience knows the crowd's there, but it's still people sitting down and talking. And how do you make it that much better than what we got? The live audience component can add to it, but it's still just going to wind up being a very talk show-esque environment, I think.
I don't know, because like when I watch some of like that Brazilian Comic-Con stuff where Wonder Woman did some stuff and everything, right? There's such a fundamental difference. Like when Chris Pine walks out on stage and you hear the crowd, it's true. And when Gal walks on stage, and I'm telling you, as somebody watching, because I wasn't in Brazil. We got to go to that Brazil Comic-Con someday, by the way.
I really want to go.
That thing looks like it's getting crazy. But even just as a schlub sitting down watching it on my computer monitor, I'm getting my hair, the hair on my arm stands up. I get chills. You just feel like you're in that environment. And it was so fundamentally different than 6 boxes with different people on Zoom. Hi, guys. Hi, a pre-recorded Zoom conversation. It was still fun when they dropped the trailer. But then when I watched the Wonder Woman thing that they did at the Brazil Comic-Con, I'm like, this is fun to watch. Like, this is so cool, and the energy is there, and I feel like it just gives it more pop. That's why I think D23 is so great. But I don't think it's an either or, Rob. I think they take some of the big wins that they had, like some of the fundamental lessons they learned from the exclusively digital experience, and they make it a both and. They figure out a way to capture that magic that they had in Brazil and incorporate it into the worldwide event feel of a way to translate that into digitally. And I think you can get a best of both worlds thing. So I just know that they've had tremendous success at Disney with D23. I think DC and Warner Brothers can do it every bit as well and make it really fun. But either way, I think whether it's only exclusively dropping news and trailers with pre-recorded, messages from people next year, or if they incorporate a live element to it, one way or another, one shape or another, I think DC FanDome is going to be something that they replicate again. In whichever form it is, I'm not sure yet, but I just don't see there being a reason not to do it again. All right, let's see here. Next up, we have, was that Terry? No, now it's Terry. So that was Cameron. Yes, now we're at Terry, who writes, "Hi, John. DC FanDome was great and looking forward to all that is to come. I hear the Batman will push from June to October. Yes, because they were delayed in their filming. They got cut off on their filming. They pushed it just a couple of months, so they only pushed it a couple of months. It's now coming out in October of 2021. Got IMAX early screening tickets for Tenet. Road trip New Jersey to Pennsylvania for this one. No easy task these days with limited seats in theaters. Your Tenet plans." I don't actually have Tenet plans yet. I got my New Mutants plans, but I don't have my Tenet plans yet. I do need to make that soon. But yes, you are right. They had a couple of days ago, they announced that they moved it to October. Again, no big deal, not unexpected, because their shooting was delayed by 4 or 5 months. So they pushed the release date by just a couple of months. All good. Not that we don't have to wait that much longer, Terry. And I hope you have fun, man. Mad Chad writes, "John, Patreon supporter here. Thank you for being a Patreon supporter, Mad Chad. So excited for the Batman movie. Trailer looks great. Feels like Seven. We've talked about that a lot. Set in Gotham, which is amazing to me. So excited for Paul Dano's Riddler. And you know what? I have a feeling, Rob, and I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that because Dano was robbed of some of his much-deserved credit and adulation for There Will Be Blood, because his performance, I think he did get an Academy Award nomination, but even that was overshadowed by Daniel Day-Lewis's performance. I'm really hoping that this is going to be a vessel that gives Paul Dano his due. and really makes him a front and center star to a lot of people because he is insanely talented. Did you ever see that one, like that Beach Boys? What was the name of it again? He did it with John.
Oh, yeah. I did see that. Why am I drawing a blank on the name of the movie?
It wasn't called Brian Wilson. It was called.
No.
Oh, I'm forgetting the name of it. And he
It
did it
wasn't
with
Smile.
Well, he did that, but that was with John Cusack too, right? Didn't he do that one with John Cusack? I might be thinking of a different co-star, but it was that. I can't remember. But anyway, Dano, awesome. Go check it out. All right, Curtis Lopez writes, I'd say DC FanDome was a success. A lot of fans, including myself, enjoyed a lot of these panels, and the event got a lot of buzz. Over under 50%, DC FanDome becomes an annual event. Love and Mercy, thank you. That's the one. Pal Dano, Love and Mercy. Becomes an annual event. If it's only a one-time thing, I understand because of this year's circumstances. Again, I think what DC should look at doing is amalgamating all the best of what the live events are, because the live events 100% always better, with all the stuff they were able to do with the digital worldwide aspect of it. I think they need to find a way to marry the two. But again, like I just said, Curtis, I think they're going to find a way. They will continue on with this. I think the form of it may change a little bit, but I think one way or another, they'll find a way to kind of move on with this. Iman R writes, hello, John. I was browsing HBO Max's Instagram and happened to see a random comment from a person on one of the Snyder Cut related posts, which says, Batfleck versus Deathstroke, please. And HBO's response was, one thing at a time. What's your take on this? I think it means absolutely nothing. You know me, I am dying for WB to go back to Ben and say, hey, Ben, you worked 2 years on making this Batman movie. You had it like the cast and everything. You were ready to go. Go ahead and do it. I hope they do. But honestly, that little a comment left there means nothing. It absolutely means nothing. That doesn't mean the thing in and of itself can't be great, but that in and of itself means nothing. Rogue Mammoth writes, Robert Pattinson dressed like a bat. I dig it. Rob, a little bit of a Jason Momoa Justice League line there, dressed like a bat. I dig it. But I don't know if I got your take, because when we talked about the trailer, I don't know if I got your take specifically on what did you think of the costume? Like, what do you think of the costume of the Batman?
What do I think?
Yeah, what was your take on the costume?
Well, first of all, one of the things I thought was great about the costume was, again, how quickly and fast he could move in it. And we, we're all, we all think like Batman, the animated series or something like that is the classic costume. And everyone talks about, the shape of the cowl. But in the real world, they said it was Batman year 2. So he's still trying to figure this stuff out. And I thought he looked good. I liked the way the costume moved. Again, we didn't get like the hero full body shot of it in bright light where we could really see what it looked like. But I thought it fit the footage that we saw,
Yeah, and you know what else? I remember Matt Reeves talked in the preamble leading up to them releasing the trailers, like, hey, we also talked to Robert. We needed to make sure he could actually move in this thing. And ever since you go back to the Michael Keaton Batman where the neck and the shoulders were connected and he had to do this, that's become a greater source of emphasis. But you're right. It looked like he moved very fluidly in it, and it looks like they did a good job on it that way.
And also, even in the Nolan Batman movies, we saw the evolution of how Bruce Wayne came to the costume. He first was like using spelunking stuff, and then he moved from there into the memory foam. And so it's an evolutionary process, and I'm sure that's part of this movie as well.
All right, we move on. Next up is Austin Alberto writes, John, The Boys Season 2 Rotten Tomatoes film score dropped with a 92%. I am so excited for the show. Does this increase your excitement for it as well? No. Oddly, no. Because my excitement for The Boys Season 2 is already completely off the chart. I just finished rewatching Season 1 again with Ann and Kaori. And I don't think it could have come out with 100%. It wouldn't have my excitement level's already at its ceiling. That's just what it is. I cannot wait for this thing to come out. I am dying to see it. But hey, and is it good news or bad news to hear it get a 92? Obviously, it's good.
We're like 2 weeks away from it too.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited. I am so excited. All right, Aaron Jones writes, I love the "I am vengeance" line because you could feel the rage and meaning in his voice. Also, Cheetah has the Amazing Spider-Man 2 Electro grudge vibe. Then you get more attention over me kind of vibe. A little bit. I mean, we know that, what's her name? Barbara. Barbara is more of a meek person who kind of looks at somebody like Diana with the fashion and the gorgeous looks and all that kind of stuff, and she kind of wishes she could be her, and there probably creates a bit of anonymity and jealousy and whatever. And you're right, there is a little bit of Electro to that. But I don't think they're going to go completely that route. I mean, if you look at Patty Jenkins, the way she handles characters, I think it'll be more nuanced and a little bit more layered. There'll be more to it than just that. I think you're going to find out a lot more about Kristen Wiig's character. That it's not just, oh, I wanted to be Diana, and therefore I'm going to become a supervillain. I think there's going to be more to it than that, than there was for Electro. But you're not wrong, Aaron. It does have those vibes. Don Pesulima writes, "Hey, John and Rob, I was really hoping for Ava DuVernay and Tom King's New Gods movie to pop up during DC FanDome. I read Tom King's Mr. Miracle and fell in love with that universe. Do you know any updates about the movie?" I don't, but Rob, I've been saying for a while that, it was just about a month ago or maybe 2 months ago that Ava DuVernay came out and said, hey, her and this writer are still working on it and blah, blah, blah. At best, I think this is a 50-50 proposition that this movie ever happens, because they started talking about this movie a year ago. And we just had DC FanDome come and gone with no mention of it. Like, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't recall there being one reference to New Gods, to the movie project New Gods, or one reference to this project. I don't think things look good, but I've been doubtful for a long time. Again, I'd say it's a pure coin toss right now whether the movie happens. Rob, where is your expectation as far as this movie actually happening? And do you think its absence from DC FanDome makes a statement? What do you think?
Well, look, I like Ava DuVernay a great deal. I dare say I have a bit of a crush on her, actually. But this is New Gods is a really tough proposition. First of all, tonally, obviously Darkseid is part of the New Gods, but the New Gods, the whole Kirby Fourth World, that's a really tough nut to crack. You're not just doing Mr. Miracle, but I mean, Steppenwolf and Darkseid are all part of that. It's to do a movie, it's hard. That's a hard thing to do. And I think it's a really difficult thing to crack. And I don't know if Ava DuVernay is the actual best person to do it, but it didn't surprise me. I think this is a long way off from getting made. I think this is a big leap to make this movie, but you never know. If she comes up with a great take, maybe it's going to be her Guardians of the Galaxy. But I still think it's a long way off from happening.
All right, and I see some people in the live chat kind of saying, well, in the Justice League Snyder Cut thing, no. There's references to the characters you might see, but there's no reference to the project itself. That's what I'm saying. I didn't see, and again, if you guys know of any references in DC FanDome where they specifically mentioned the Ava DuVernay project, please email it to me at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. I would really love to see it, but like I said, I didn't catch it myself. All right, next up, Multani writes, this is completely out of the blue, but what do you guys and chat think of these two casting choices based off appearance for now? Milo Gibson for Wolverine, I don't know who Milo Gibson is. And Dacre Montgomery from Power Rangers for the Human Torch. Basically, Milan, I don't do what do you think about X actor and X roles. I always say the exact same thing. As long as X actor is a talented actor, fine. I have met Dacre, and he's a good kid. He actually came into studio once to do a game with us. Good kid, liked him. He was also in Stranger Things season 2, or was it 3? Stranger Things, or maybe both. At any rate, he was the lifeguard, good-looking kid who tries to make a move on the other kid's mom. Anyway,
yeah, and then he turns into the villain, the creature.
Yes. good kid. I have too limited of an exposure to his acting, although I liked him in Power Rangers and I liked him in Stranger Things. I have no idea who Milo Gibson is, so I can't answer that. But basically, I don't care. Rob, do you have any kind of impression on that?
No, I mean, I like that guy as an act. It's his name is like Dakin something.
I always call him Dacre or Dacre.
Dacre. Yeah, I don't. But I really liked him. I think he looks good. I mean, I like him as a presence. I'd be curious to see, but that's really all I know him from. So I don't know what his range is.
Like I said, good kid too. Like he came in, so he was a good kid. I really liked him. I enjoyed him quite a bit. All right, we just got time for a couple more with Rob still here. Man of Steel rules writes, I've been reading up a lot on the 1978 Superman movie. Surprising to learn that Marlon Brando refused to learn his lines and berated the other actors. In the baby scene, a producer wrote the lines on the back of the baby's diapers for Brando to read the line. Listen, I'm somebody who appreciates the 1978 Superman. I don't know a lot of the history of it. Rob, I know you're a little bit more well-versed in the original Superman movie than me. Did you ever hear anything like that about that?
Dude. Dude, when I was working on Superman Returns, they had not all of it, but they had a lot of Marlon Brando footage that wasn't used. And I even have some of it where he doesn't know his lines. And there's one great moment. I put it in the blooper reel, but I think they made me take it out, where he goes, Kal-El, whatever your name is, Ralph, I don't know. And he gives the finger.
Does he actually say that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's Ralph, whatever your name is. It's very funny. But, I mean, the funny thing about Brando is you give him a line reading and he can turn it into something magical. But they used a lot of that footage to recreate the CG elements of Jor-El for Superman Returns. So seeing that footage was really interesting. But, yeah, he was mumbling and stumbling around, and it's pretty hilarious.
All right, let's move on here. Next one up is Andrew Christie, who writes, Hey, John, super excited for the Batman after the trailer dropped on Saturday. This has turned into one of my most anticipated movies since Batman vs. Superman. Is it just me, or is anyone else getting major season 1 Daredevil vibes? Again, I don't know. I can see why you would make that connection. Me, it's more of a 7 thing. And I suspected this would happen, Rob, when the first trailer dropped. But I suspected that once the first trailer dropped, the throngs of the Twilight Boy is Batman, I suspected they would disappear. And they have. They're gone.
Yeah.
Now, and listen, which is weird because you really didn't see Robert Pattinson acting in the trailer, right? Like, we didn't really see him other than do a growl, but we've been telling people since the day he was cast, dude, in the last 6-7 years, he has turned into one of the most respected, sought after actors in the business. He has become an elite level actor. He didn't get a chance to showcase that much in the trailer, other than go, I'm vengeance. I mean, that was really it. But I had a feeling that once the first trailer dropped, the Twilight Boy, people would disappear. And I think once they actually see him in the role, they see him acting. When they see him acting in this, because a lot of people just go see the blockbusters. They didn't go to see, Good Time or High Life or The Rover or whatever. They didn't go to see Lost City of Z, and they didn't have a chance to see all this incredible work that Robert Pattinson has done since his Twilight days. And I get it. If all you ever saw of Robert Pattinson was him playing Twilight and whatever his name was in Harry Potter, if that's all you ever saw, I understand the skepticism. I do. But if you have watched his stuff that he has done since, those are the people who were good with him being cast. The people who saw his stuff post Twilight were the people who were good being cast. Rob, have you noticed that? Have you noticed the difference in tone ever since that? Like, it just seems to be the atmosphere has changed ever since the Batman trailer dropped. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. And the idea that you're making fun, that'd be like, well, I'm not going to talk about Joseph Gordon-Levitt because he was on Third Rock from the Sun. I mean,
I love that show.
I know you're going to define an actor by a role. The thing is, Twilight was a huge franchise that made a lot of money. So what are you making fun of? That he was a sparkly vampire? What? I mean, that was a huge, big deal. And the fact that he's managed his career so well and he's reinvented himself over and over again and proven that he's such a great dramatic actor, I think is fantastic. So yeah, I don't think anyone after this is going to be talking about Twilight. And why would you talk about it in a disparaging context? It made a lot of money and people loved it.
Anyway, Rob, I know you've got things you've got to run off and do. You have projects you're working on that I am aware of. So listen, in the meantime, my friend, where can people find you in your adventures online?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett, or find me on my own YouTube show, what is it called? Robservations, or my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, dude, thanks a lot for being here. Always an honor and privilege having you here, and I will talk to you again later, man.
All right,
Take care. All right, guys, that was Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Now, we still got about 20 minutes to take your questions, so let's get right back to it here. We're going to go with 50 Shades of Geek, who writes, thank the Kryptonian sun god Rao for DC FanDome. I miss getting excited from watching movie trailers and doing reaction videos so much. I almost forgot how it feels like. Listen, I tell you what, the more I think about it, I think we didn't appreciate, including me, especially when it was happening, that this is the first time in almost half a year that we've had a chance to have a bunch of trailers drop and actually talk about movies and things. And it was like brand new stuff, a new thing. It really was. You know, the Batman trailer is great. All the other things are great. But really, ultimately, at the end of the day, and I didn't think about this going into it, and I didn't even think about it while it was happening. It wasn't until after the fact that I realized, you know what? That was such a gift. That just having the event itself was such a gift for those of us who are film fans. Just having, whether you're a DC fan or not, just having something to really rally around and talk about and celebrate about movies when there was nothing else going on. I mean, it really was such a gift. It really, really was. And you know, as a bonus, we got the Batman trailer. We got our Suicide Squad footage and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's all there. All right, next up. We've got Loki Doki, I like that name, writes, I'm no doubt in the minority here, but I don't think Phoenix was anything like the Joker, and I couldn't help but view Joker as a movie about some random clown. Could you elaborate on how you how he felt like the Joker? Because I don't feel the resembled comic Joker at all. I totally did. And here's the thing, you got to understand, they started Joker before we know him as the Joker, right? And so it was, to me, we saw Joker here in this movie in a context, in a way we've never seen Joker. Like, even in the comics, they've had like 5 different types of origin stories, and Joker himself says, who knows which one is real, right? Like, even he doesn't ever definitively say what it is. So we got a chance to see Joker in a context that we've never really seen done before. Not really. And you could see, to me, the seeds of Joker in there. The madness, the nihilism. That was a big part of it. You see all the seeds that manifest in what we then become known as like kind of a classic Joker. But to me, that was all there. And that's why, for me personally, it rang so legitimately. Like, watching it, I was like, this is totally unlike any Joker, but I could totally see this is the seed. This character is the seed of what sprouts into what is the Joker later. I totally saw it myself. And it was a different iteration, but I thought all the fundamental ingredients were there. And that's one of the reasons why I like the movie so much, and why it works for me. But hey, listen, we all look at these movies and they hit us differently. And just because I saw it that way doesn't mean you need to see it that way, or that your experience would have been the same as mine. So it didn't work for you. Totally cool, totally fine. But that's why it did work for me. Thanks for writing in and asking, Loki Doki. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, so no matter who wins the Stanley Cup or World Series, etc., this year I feel like there will be some people who try to diminish the accomplishment on the account of the shortened seasons, although fans of anything will always find something to complain about. No, you're not wrong. Like, I think any of the major sports, whether it's, by the way, I don't think baseball's even going to finish their season, to be honest, the way they've mismanaged the virus stuff. But whether it's NBA, Stanley Cup, whatever, honestly, even if the Leafs had won the Stanley Cup this year, I would have taken it. But even I would have told you got to put a little bit of an asterisk beside it. You had a 4-month break, and then you're playing in unusual circumstances, and the season was interrupted. All momentums were lost, all that kind of stuff. I would have taken it, but I do feel like, to be honest with you, while I'm glad the sports is back and I'm glad the NBA is looking as exciting as ever, all that kind of stuff, and the hockey is great, but I will admit, I'm glad they're doing it, but I feel like you're going to have to put a little bit of an asterisk beside the names of whoever the champions of the various leagues end up being. That's just me. And that's not a complaint. I'm just saying, yeah, to be fair, I think you got to put a little bit of an asterisk there because it's not normal circumstances. Anyway, MD writes, I have seen so many comments the last few days of people trashing on Nolan/Bale's Batman. Well, they're idiots. Like all of a sudden they're bad now. Yes, Reeves' Batman looks awesome, but that doesn't mean everything before it is no longer valid in its own greatness. I hate that attitude. First of all, I got to tell you, I have not seen that myself. I haven't seen anybody suddenly trashing on the Nolan Batman films. And by the way, when I say they're idiots, obviously I'm saying that in fun because it's all subjective. People like or dislike whatever they like or dislike. Well, that's a pretty stupid thing to say. The Dark Knight is one of the great movies. It is like not just it's not just a top 3 greatest comic book film of all time. It's like truly one of the great movies. But here's the problem. Within fandom, and we have seen this in Marvel versus DC. We have seen this in like any type of movie fandom in particular, right? Some people are so weak-minded that they feel in order for me to elevate one thing, I have to diminish the other. Now, look, all film is subjective. There are people who legitimately didn't like The Dark Knight. That's fair. There are people who legitimately just don't like the original Star Wars. That's fair. I think it's crazy, but it's fair. You're allowed to. That's the subjectivity of film. However, there is also undeniably people who bring agendas to it. There is. And it's like, oh, for me to elevate what's going on in DC right now, in my beloved DCU, I've got to trash the other things that are seen as better. Whether that's Marvel films or even if that's other DC properties that aren't within the current DCEU. Some people do that. And it's not just DC fans. It's Marvel fans do it. Star Wars fans do it. Harry Potter fans do it. You name it. But it is, unfortunately, one of the weaker elements of our fandom. There will always be some people who feel like in order for me to legitimize my love of something, I have to trash something else. We've seen that in the Marvel and the DC corporate zombie slaves, right? I like Marvel, therefore I have to trash anything DC does. I like DC, so I have to shit talk anything Marvel does. No, you're allowed to love something and still be cool that other things are loved and other things can be great. I mean, it is what it is. Fortunately for me, MD, I have not seen this trashing of Nolan's movies. Or of particularly of Dark Knight and Batman Begins. I haven't personally seen that yet, but hopefully that doesn't become a growing trend because that's just stupid. That's just stupid. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. My films are for adults. Writes in, 1, I totally agree with your point about Marvel action being used to amplify the story thread. With the airport scene, Cap's team wanted to fly to Russia, while Iron Man's team was there to arrest them instead of leaving to the authorities. The ensuing fight is just a result of that and already built up tensions. In other words, a means to an end for both teams' objectives. This is why they were pulling their punches. They weren't trying to kill each other, just achieve their objective, which is what makes it great. Well, yes, and by the way, the airport scene, the other thing that makes it great isn't just that there was narrative purpose for their immediate objectives. There was narrative purpose for the history of what went on. This is the Avengers. These are people who fought side by side. And for numbers of films leading up to this one, there had been some tension between, Steve and Tony, right? And all this kind of stuff. So it's everything. It's the current objectives. It's the history of the characters. All this stuff is being played out in the action. And that's what elevates action from just being visual noise to being truly thrilling and exciting in a movie when it's a part of, when it has narrative purpose. So it's a good observation, man. All right, next up, Zayn writes, "Hey, John, they said that Man is doing a prequel for Heat." Well, he said he's looking at it. My question is, do you think that it's going to be 2 movies? Because it's kind of weird if one movie is about 2 characters that's never going to meet in the movie. What do you think? Heat equals great. I honestly, I don't think it's ever going to happen. I'll be honest with you. No studio ever came out, if I remember correctly, and it's been a while since that story. If I remember it correctly off the top of my head, no studio had ever greenlit such a thing. Like I think Mann said he was working on something like that he was writing something like that. But for every 100 things that get written, 1 gets made into a movie, right? So I don't expect it's going to happen at all. So whether it's 2 movies or none is kind of moot. So I don't really think it's going to happen at all. I mean, maybe Mann does write it and releases it as a novel of some sorts, but I don't think it's going to happen. All right, Scott Brown writes, "I'm a very big Batman fan and have been since I was 9 and read Dark Knight Returns 30 years. I love the Batman trailer. It felt like the Batman movie I've always wanted. And I disagree with you on the vengeance line when he said it, I yelped and got goosebumps." And that's cool. Like, by the way, there's a lot of people who like that vengeance line. And I love the trailer, but I'll be honest, there's a part of it. That's the other stupid thing about fandom. It's like, well, you either have to love it all unconditionally and say everything about it is perfect, or else you're a hater. Get the fuck out of here, you 6-year-old. Anyway, yeah, I love the trailer, I do, but there were a couple of parts that didn't work for me, just being honest. One of the parts was the vengeance line. To me, that's a great example of a perfect line in a comic book panel. Like, if you had seen that scene play out and panel-wise, like comic book panels, you see the guys, then you see the one approaching Batman, then you see another panel of Batman, boom, 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 and then the next panel, him on top and saying, "I'm vengeance." That's a perfect comic book panel. Perfect. Felt a little touch cheesy to me in live action. The line itself, that one single line, that 1 second of the trailer felt a little cheesy to me. But that's just me. But I'm in the minority. I think most people really did like the line. And that's great. And you know what? When I watch it in context in the movie, here's a great example. Remember when they dropped the first trailer for Titans? And they had Nightwing going, "Fuck Batman." Remember that? And we were all like, oh my God, that looks so stupid. That was so stupid. But when I watched the actual episode and you saw it in context, I was like, you know what? The line actually works when you see it in context. When you don't just pluck it out in a quick shot from a trailer and you actually see the line in context of everything going on. That was a great example of a line that felt totally idiotic in the trailer. But then when you saw it actually in the scene, I actually liked it. I liked the line in the scene because it felt like it made a lot more sense. I have a feeling that vengeance line from the Batman trailer, even though that's like the only thing I didn't like about the Batman trailer, I have a feeling I'm probably going to have the same experience that I did with the F Batman line from Titans. I have a feeling that when I actually see it in context, in the scene, fully played out, I have a feeling it's probably going to work better for me, much like Nightwing's line did in Titans. But we'll wait and see. Anyway, I'm glad you liked it, man. And yes, the trailer was fantastic. The tone of it, the feel of it. I feel like they've nailed the character. I'm loving the Seven vibe I'm getting from it. There's just so much to like about it. All right, Scott McScottington writes, "Hey, John, I have one simple question today. When in the goddamn hell are they going to release a Godzilla vs. Kong trailer? Seriously? I'm literally shitting myself in both anger and anticipation for this. Surely they have something. Oh, God, they should. Listen, sorry, Scott. I'll say it. They should not put out a trailer for it. That movie's still 9 months away. The movie's still 9 months away. And listen, there's no need. There's no purpose to put it out now. Look, remember the last Godzilla movie? they've learned a lesson of that because they put out a couple of trailers, not just the Comic-Con one. They followed it up. They put out this big, amazing Comic-Con trailer of Godzilla King of the Monsters, a movie that was still a year away. And here's what you got to understand, I think. Buzz is not self-sustaining. Buzz is a diminishing resource, right? Buzz enters the atmosphere, but it starts to evaporate. You need to not only create buzz, but you have to time your buzz, because you need buzz crescendoing as you're going into the release of the film. What happened with Godzilla King of the Monsters, they put out that first trailer, everybody got excited, everybody buzzed. They blew their load. And they blew their load early. And what happened was all that buzz evaporated and it disappeared. And then they kept on putting more trailers and more trailers and more trailers. And what they realized was they had already blown their load. And then when Godzilla King of the Monsters came out, everybody's going, how come not people aren't rushing out to see it? Because they blew their load too early as far as the buzz and the momentum and all that energy goes. The movie Godzilla vs. Kong is still 9 months away, maybe 8, but I think it's still 9 months away. It would be a strategic mistake for them to start putting out trailers right now. I think it would be a strategic error, and I think they learned that lesson from Godzilla King of the Monsters. So I wouldn't expect to see a Godzilla vs. Kong trailer for another 2, maybe 3 months. Maybe longer. But now watch, 5 minutes after today's show is done, they drop a Godzilla vs. Kong trailer. But yeah, I think it would be a mistake. I think they need to wait till it's like 6 or 5 months out before you start dropping that stuff. Otherwise, they're going to suffer the same fate that they did last time. All right, next up. Isaac Beebe writes, in general, my mom is not interested in the slightest in comic book / superhero stuff, but she loves the Nolan Batman trilogy. Nice. I showed her the Batman teaser and told her it was a Batman meets Sherlock with him solving riddles, clues, and she said, I'm in. Listen, you tell people this is a detective thriller set in the vein of Seven, and there's a mystery with a superhero slant to it. It sells itself. It sells itself. You know, Matt Reeves told us he was making this kind of movie. Remember I talked about the 4 check boxes? That trailer checked off every single one. It feels like it's delivering on that promise, Isaac. And I, along with your mom, cannot wait for this thing. All right, Isaac also writes, I'm glad that Disney decided to put Hamilton on Disney Plus so I could finally see it here in Australia, and I absolutely loved it. But I also do hope it comes to cinemas eventually as well, because I would love to attend a sing-along screening of it. Here's what won't happen. It won't get a big theatrical release because it's already on Disney Plus, so it's not going to do that. But, you know, things like Sound of Music and Beauty and the Beast, always in little select theaters. They'll, you know, local cities will have like a special screening one night where they do a sing-along. I have no doubt, Isaac, I have no doubt that that will happen with Hamilton. When? Not sure, but I'm sure it'll happen. It won't be like, you know, on 600 theaters across. No. It'll be like one city will have one, then another city will do one. Then, you know, kind of like in LA, like once a year, there's a Sound of Music sing-along thing that happens like once a year at one particular place. I think you'll probably see that happen with Hamilton. All right, Jojo Flabato writes, hey, John, if you had to guess the roles, what role do you think both Ben and Michael's Batmans will play in the movie? And how would you guess Michael's is introduced? No idea how they're going to be introduced, but what roles do they play? I think they're going to play small roles. I do. I don't know that. I have no insider information on that. I'm just guessing. But my guess right now, until I see evidence that, you know, makes me change my mind, I think they're playing small roles. I think, you know, I think Ben's might be a little bit more mentorish, because they said, Andy Muschietti said in the Flash panel that Flash's new suit, which I don't actually think looks all that good, but whatever. Maybe I'll love it when I see it in context in the movie. That his new suit was actually made for him by Bruce. So I think maybe a little bit of a mentor thing, but the thing is, I think both of them, I think, are going to be small. I think they're going to be small. There are some outlets reporting that they're going to be just basically cameos. I think it'll be a little bit more than like a 1 or 2 minute cameo, but I still think they're going to be pretty small right now. They might not be. I'm not saying they will. They might not be, but right now I'm thinking they're going to kind of be small. John Campea writes, hello, fellow John. Assuming this is Ben's last film as Batman, who do you think will play Batman in the current DC universe? Will they find a way to get Robert's Batman to fill his place, or just do a reboot, or maybe even continue with the Justice League without him? Honestly, and it's a huge if, it's a big if this is Ben's last hurrah as Batman, if he is coming out of his Batman retirement just so he could do this like Harrison Ford did in The Force Awakens, he only came back so they could properly give Han Solo a death and give Han Solo a send-off, something he wanted ever since Return of the Jedi. If that's what they're doing with this Ben Affleck appearance, so they could send him off in a proper send-off, and we don't know that it is, but if, then I just think this DCEU goes on without a Batman. Because they're going to have another Batman going on their own. We're going to have the Robert Pattinson Batman in his own universe, doing his own thing. And there's plenty of other characters they can use in the DCEU proper. So my guess, and it's only a guess, is that if, and it's a huge if, this is Ben Affleck's last appearance, and they give him a send-off, which we don't know that that's the case, but if that's the case, I'm guessing that they just move forward to the DCEU without a Batman in the DCEU proper. Dan Ketchum writes, holy crap, that was Colin Farrell? Now that's a makeup job. I had no idea that was him. I had to have fans point out who they thought was Colin Farrell, and I looked at him like, that's not Colin Farrell. And I had to double check, and I'm like, holy crap, that is Colin Farrell. Oh my God, the prosthetics on that. Dude, that looked so freaking good. That looks so good. And here's the thing, did not look fake at all. Didn't look the least bit fake. All right, John Wadkins writes, are we overlooking the Flashpoint elephant in the room? We have two Batmans announced. Surely Keaton's role could be that of Thomas Wayne, which could lend to giving Batfleck that short emotional impact input to the Flashpoint letter reveal from his father. Okay, this has been addressed, but it's possible. The thing is, when they announced that he was coming back, they said he was coming back as Bruce Wayne. And maybe that was a misdirect. But they did say he was coming back as Bruce Wayne. The other thing you got to keep in mind is this. Everybody makes this mistake every time a comic book movie is coming out that's based on another comic, that's based on a comic. And they think, oh, they're doing Civil War, so it's going to be just like the comic book Civil War. No, it's not. It's totally different. Oh, they're doing X-Men Days of Future Past. Oh, it's going to be just like X-Men Days of Future Past. No, it's not. It's totally different. And right now, everybody's assuming, oh, they're doing Flashpoint, so it's going to be just like the Flashpoint animated movie. Or there's no guarantee we're even going to get Thomas Wayne in this movie. I'm not saying they won't. Don't misquote me. I'm not saying there won't be a Thomas Wayne in this one, but I'm telling you, everybody's assuming we're going to get Thomas Wayne just because he's in the other ones. Guess what? Every single, other than Sin City, every other comic book movie we've seen that has the name of a pre-existing comic story, they take massively different directions. So right now, I'm going on the assumption that Michael Keaton is going to be a version of Bruce Wayne, although that could be a misdirect. And that doesn't mean we can't have Thomas Wayne. I mean, hell, we got Negan, who was Thomas Wayne in the beginning of Batman versus Superman. He could very well come back, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, and be Thomas Wayne but we don't even know if there's going to be Thomas Wayne. But John, it doesn't matter what they did before. That doesn't mean they're going to do it here. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We'll have to wait and find out. Ben Rayner writes, 1 of 2. Hi, John. Something's been on my mind I want to share. Terms good movie, bad movie. What do they mean? Do critics liking a movie mean make them good or bad? Does a person liking a movie or not liking a movie make it good or bad? Also, why do we care if a group of strangers, critics, like or dislike a movie? Now, I don't expect you to answer this complex question. I just wanted to share thanks for everything you do. Love your community and everything you've built. Keep on the filthy. Thank you so much, Ben. Listen, a good movie, bad movie, it's all subjective. So many people try to argue with me on this point, and they're always wrong, and they always lose. Film, as in all art, is purely subjective. It's purely subjective. All we can go by is really, what do we think? Do I like a movie? Do you like a movie? If I like a movie, to me, the movie's good. If I dislike a movie, to me, it's bad. But that doesn't mean it's good or bad to you. Now, you can have consensus. Like most people think this movie is bad and most people think that movie's good, but that's fine. That's just a collection of various subjective opinions, right? As far as critics go, you know, it's the exact same reason about, like, I'm a tech head, right? So if I'm thinking about buying like a new tablet, I'm thinking about getting that brand new Samsung Tab S7 Plus, which looks like a beast. I currently have the iPad Pro, the 11-inch iPad Pro. But if I want to get a new tablet and I'm looking at the Samsung Tab S7 Plus, which looks like a beast, guess what? I'm not going to go out and invest my money in it unless I go to a bunch of tech reviewers and see what they think. Now, I may not end up agreeing totally with what the tech reviewers say, but they are people who've got their hands on it. They have a lot of experience with tech gadgets. They work with tech gadgets all the time. They immerse themselves in tech gadgets and computer devices and personal electronics and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to make any kind of an investment until I go to a whole bunch of different tech reviewers and hear what they have to say. I may or may not ultimately agree with them, but if I'm going to make an investment, I want to hear what the tech reviewers have to say, and then I'll make my own decision. To me, watching a movie, whether it's in the movie theater or at home or whatever, you are investing your time, you're investing your money, and I think it's foolish if you're going to make an investment to not take a moment out and check to see what some other people are saying about it. Same is true as if I'm going to buy a car or buy a phone or what restaurant I'm going to choose to go to. You know, everybody hops on and looks up, you know, Yelp reviews or whatever, or what movie I'm going to go see. If I'm going to invest my time and invest some money in watching a movie, I'm going to make up my own mind, like I will with a tablet I'm going to buy, but I'm first going to go to some people who I sometimes agree and sometimes disagree with, that completely immerse themselves in movies. That's all they do is watch movies. They've seen far more movies than most people. And if they're good critics, they're good at explaining why they do or don't like a movie. My favorite critic of all time was actually Roger Ebert, and I disagreed with him half the time. But I love the way he communicated what he thought, because the way he communicated what he thought helped me understand what I thought. So yeah, a movie is good or bad if you think it's good or bad. Ultimately, that's the only litmus test. But why do people go to critics? Because I think, like anything else, we want to go and hear what other people have to say who are more immersed in that stuff before we make our own decision. We just want to make an informed decision. That's why I also tell people, never just listen to one film critic. Like, I think you should have a collection of film critics that have different points of view that you listen to on a regular basis if you think they're good communicators. And so then hear out all the critics and then make up your own mind, but now you're making a little bit more of an informed decision. So anyway, that's just kind of my take on it. Anyway, guys, listen, there are still more questions to come. We've got Kevin Kindy, Jesse's Bad Joke, Queen of the Filthy, and a few others. Do not worry. We've run out of time, unfortunately. We've gone over 2 hours already. We will get to your questions. We will start off tomorrow's show with your questions. Your questions will be the first ones that we start with tomorrow. So do not worry. It's going to be addressed on the show. It's just going to be tomorrow. All right, guys. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you guys so much for being here and making this show part of your day. It truly is, and I'm not joking when I say it, it truly is an honor that you would choose to spend part of your day here with us as we talk about movies and all that kind of stuff. So thank you guys so much for that. Thanks again to Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett for gracing us with all of his insight as well. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the live questions, because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel while you did it. And all of us here, thank you very, very much for that. Guys, please do the 4 main things. Stay smart. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. My name is John Campea, my friends, and until next time, everybody, bye-bye.